We're officially live now.
Hey, well, good. We're alive again.
We're live again.
And
Is my sweater? It's gray, right? It's charcoal.
charcoal would be where
Yeah.
I would go.
I think it looks different in this light.
Yeah, it looks dark gray in that.
So much is going on.
Yeah, well, it's been a while since we've had him for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been a big week.
been a big week.
Did you see the Saturday Night Live sketch last week with Bob Mueller? Where I think it was last week where, or maybe I just saw it recently. Yeah, I think it was recent. Like where what's her face? Who's the one that plays everything now? Blonde hair.
Yeah.
Kate McKinnon.
Yeah.
She's playing Bob Mueller. He's like, you know how. This is going to be big. I'm like, well, yeah, you know how that show Lost. Like it was people were really into it, but had kind of an unsatisfying ending. Didn't wrap things up. This isn't Lost.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. We found out that the president wanted to fire Mueller last July. So for June.
Well, and that's it's significant in that.
Everyone around him told him he couldn't. That part's significant.
Well, and the other thing I think is interesting is that McGahn, the White House counsel, said he would resign over it. Now, no one from the White House has denied that it was said, right? Like, which is saying something.
Well, except Trump.
Right, well, right, fake news. It's a fake. But then, so it's interesting is what motivation does anybody have to lie? None. So they're going to test it. Now, it's an interesting situation when your lawyers need lawyers.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
Like, and so everybody, I just don't understand how he's not going to perjure himself at some point if he testifies because
he lies every day.
Yeah, and he lies every day. And also, he doesn't know what Mueller knows. Like, so he doesn't. Right. So, like they didn't know, right? Papadopoulos was wearing a wire or whatever, and that's probably how they got Flynn, right, on some of the stuff.
Right.
So can you imagine I would pay. They should be a closed circuit TV like they used to do with boxing matches, because that would be fantastic television.
Yeah, I wonder who's going to play Trump in the movie when the movies start. Out.
Trump, I hope. I hope Donald Trump plays himself.
Or at least
that's really the only thing.
At least flashbacks from prison as he's sitting in there. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, it's all kind of just crazy, man. Crazy
there's
stuff.
a lot of craziness. And Davos,
yeah. One of the things I trying to recover from this flu, which has just taken forever. I gave up. I haven't been watching. I have not been watching a lot of the political news stuff. I've been reading the newspaper, but I've been just avoiding the feeding frenzy because it just wasn't helping me.
Yeah. Well, I've stayed on the wall for you.
Thank you. I appreciate you being on the wall.
I'm on the wall. I'm on the wall.
Well, you are. You're on the wall for me, and I'm confused a little bit about Hannity. He switched back and forth about something. What was it they were? Because they've got this whole fake memo or whatever.
Oh yeah, which they don't want to release, or the Democrats.
And Nunez has probably broken the law. So.
This is basically this is to sort of say that there's this conspiracy that first off, if there's a conspiracy that was trying to tip the scales in Hillary's favor, how'd that work out?
It was a brilliant.
And
I'm pretty sure that if you polled the FBI, no one wanted Donald Trump to be president, but Hillary Clinton was not popular among the FBI either. So
no, Hillary Clinton's not popular in a lot of places.
Yeah. So,
it's a struggle of her candidacy.
Yep. So, any rate, yeah. So we.
By the way, you know what I learned this week?
What?
The guy that I forget his name. The guy that shot Garfield.
Mm-hmm.
Garfield's wife was with him the first time he was going to do it, and she was convalescing. She was recovering from some illness, and she was thinking about how the illness and then the trauma of her husband being shot in front of her, would. So he didn't do it the first time out of concern for the first lady.
Oh, the anarchist it was an anarchist that shot Garfield.
There's an anarchist with a heart.
They don't make anarchists like
they used to. No, that's really So I just thought you'd want to know that.
Yeah, and by the way. This may come up in our conversation, but Vice President Pence, who went to Israel, did not visit one Christian site. He was unwelcomed by the Christian community, but he didn't go to Bethlehem. He didn't go to Nazareth.
Well, maybe there was no room for him at the end.
There's no room for him. It's just remarkable, the right-wing Christian coalition with the right-wing Israeli, and that they don't even have any kind of consciousness about the Christian community over there. So it continues to be like an amazing disaster over there. Yeah, and Turkey attacked our allies who fought with us, the Kurds, and we didn't do anything about it. So, yeah, life continues to go on. And our total absence of any kind of leadership in the Middle East continues to happen, except for kissing Netanyahu's ass. That's pretty much what we're doing right now. Yeah.
By the way, Glenn Scrivener from England is watching with us right now. Hello, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn.
And Stephen Rowe from Canada.
Yeah.
I think is Stephen from Canada or not? No. Maybe.
I thought he was from Canada.
Yeah, I think Stephen's from Canada. I forget. It's, the continents are hard for me.
We may just thank you both for listening. Hopefully, I may need sanctuary. So
yeah, sanctuary cities.
Or countries, yeah.
Sanctuary countries.
We need to go somewhere. Cities of refuge. We could start that over. If there's a biblical practice, yeah.
Biblical.
Yeah.
Hey, Glenn, look at that. See, look what we can do here. We can feature this. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't want to do that. What I can do, though, I think I can do it, is I can feature the... Oh, no, I don't want to do that either.
There's a lot of things you don't want to do.
I thought I could take this comment and just drop it somewhere. No, I can't. I keep opening the web browser. This is bad television. This is what they call bad television. Overlays. I don't know. I thought I could...
How did we go from being good radio to bad television?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a question for the ages.
Yeah. I
did have that, though, where we could do that. I forgot.
You did the last time.
Yeah, how did I do that? I thought I just, did, over... Oh, I did show in all scenes. I don't know. Oh, wait. I don't know. Well, Glenn, I would put your comment up, but all I can do is open my web browser for some reason.
Yeah.
It's kind of frustrating.
But it's deeply appreciated, your comment, Glenn.
It is very, very deeply appreciated. I mean, it's so deeply appreciated that we're stopping the
whole production here
to just do this, to try to make an effort.
It's funny how some things work one time and they don't work again.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of stuff is like
that.
Like that. Well, all right. I tried it. He just keeps opening the browser window. It's very weird.
Yeah.
Well, so there you go. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think we're going to talk about evangelicals. What's the ongoing evangelical support for Donald Trump? We had a lot of different ideas, topics. But we thought we would kind of talk about that since, particularly Jerry Falwell.
Oh, there it is. Look, there's the commentary.
Yeah.
Click to view 3 comments.
Maybe I should stop commenting. Yeah, we had.
So there's the comment section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Look at that. We got it. There we go.
Now look at that.
See, now there you go, Glenn. Now you can see you're up there now. So
yeah, that's beautiful.
So this is incentivizing people to comment because
they get to be.
They're really going to have a sense of esteem and importance because their comment will now be part of the video over.
Right. So, Glenn, maybe you should have come up with a better comment. Knowing that we were going to.
I think your comments are fantastic.
Well, I know. I mean, maybe I should stop commenting. Seems to be a
right. It's It's a little hard.
We want you to comment. We're open to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. And by the way, Glenn's podcast for people who are they just changed their name. It was the Evangelist podcast. I think it's Speak Life now, but great podcast.
All right.
Very well done.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Exactly. We'll put a link to it.
There we go.
All right. So should we get going?
Let's do this.
All right. Here we go. What do you say? Let's put it up there. My next one will cover Bill's face. So there's that. So yeah, he is covering your face now.
Actually, I think it's an improvement. I feel.
All right, there you go. And let's put that one.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. We move it above Bill's. We can move it actually. We could put Glenn's face on Bill's face.
There we go. Now, there we are.
So there you go. Okay, I'm going to hit record.
All right.
I'm going to first do the thing I always forget to do. I'm going to make it so I can see the thing. Make sure we got to. Welcome back to New Persuasive Words. I'm Scott Jones.
And I'm Bill Bohr.
We're having a great time with our Facebook Live interface thing, whatever we call it.
Yeah.
Ecamm
comments.
Yeah, Ecamm Live. Actually, so we had problems with two microphones working with this, and actually the CEO got back to me on Facebook Messenger, and he helped me figure out what it was. So
wow. So that's
very
good.
basic thing.
That's responsive. That's good.
It is responsive. I like that.
Well, happy Saturday afternoon. Happy Shabbat is closing out here today.
It is Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, friends.
At the end of it. So, yeah, so it's been a week, and we've been all kinds of stuff going on. I'm still recovering from the plague here, which has been...
This is a severe flu.
This was a severe flu season, and I think it's going to surpass the last severe flu season. I'm not sure how they managed that and measure that. Also, this week we had, was it the 11th or 17th school shooting already for 2018, and two wonderful 15-year-olds died. And we don't talk about it. We conveniently don't talk about that. We don't do anything about them. They just keep happening, and we're going to build a wall to keep out the imaginary problem of illegal aliens. Not that there's problems, but the most dangerous part of America are Americans right now, statistically. And even the whole Las Vegas thing kind of went away. But, we don't hear people talk about that. There's, scores of people were killed, and, hundreds of lives were shattered, and we just move on. So that's life in America. But as long as evangelicals have their man in the White House, we can continue to move forward and hope, right?
We can hope. We can. It was interesting when you were talking about the school shooting. Like the things that I saw during the Las Vegas shooting I think we talked about this, but I found the most interesting were Brett Stevens, the conservative commentator from the New York Times, said that we should just get rid of the Second Amendment. And he's a conservative. Right. He said basically, he's like, no, look, I don't mean that would be a prohibition on all guns. He's like, but if we didn't have the amendment in and the fetishizing of it, we could just be more realistic. Like, gun control would have a lot more flexibility, and you wouldn't have this sort of second. And then someone from 538.com, the Nate Silver's website, who's a liberal and studied the gun control issue for like almost a year, said basically she's not convinced that any of the policy solutions, especially people advocate what people do in Europe and Australia and stuff, all the numbers she looks at, that wouldn't make a difference. So it's just interesting, two people from two opposite sides of the spectrum committing ideological heresy. Like for one to say we should get rid of the Second Amendment, another to say all the gun control things liberals talk about, just there's no sociological, different a lot of research. I don't think, she's like, I'm for gun control, lots of it, but I just don't think any of the things people are suggesting would have an impact.
Yeah, I do think the fetishing of the gun thing, the omnipresent nature of the gun culture, it's such a part of who we are, and we're such a violent culture. And we've always been a violent culture. I mean, in some levels, this country was founded, it was a very violent founding of the country. And I think the violence of the Civil War, that the trauma of that and the reactions to that trauma still affect so much of our racial issues in this country. And
the Three Stooges, very violent comedy.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was thinking.
But I'm just saying, you see it in many
types
pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling.
Hulk Hogan, by the way, said he's considering running for political office.
Oh, that would be, yeah, why not? Yeah.
Hulkamania run. Could it get worse? No,
it could not get worse. So, yeah. So the reason we just are willing to tolerate our children being shot at school. It's one of those things where I'm not usually a very hopeless kind of person, but I'm pretty hopeless about that. There just doesn't seem to even be a will to talk about it anymore. And so we've come to the point where we accept, every other week children getting shot at school, and that's and we somehow hide behind a flag and talk about being a Christian nation, and that somehow there's not an incongruency there for so many people.
Which brings us to our topic.
Yes.
Why do evangelicals still support Donald Trump?
Yeah, and boldly support them. I mean, there was, I mean, one leader gave him a mulligan for paying off the X-rated film star. So I guess from all these evangelical churches, a lot of them do a lot of interventions around.
I don't think I think it's beyond a mulligan. He doesn't even have to play it as it lies. I mean, he could tee it up in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah.
He could do.
So
By the way, somebody said, I forget who said it on one of the news channels. They said, he's such a great negotiator, but the only one that gets a deal is the porn star.
right. So I'm trying to think of these conservative churches. So it's wrong to be addicted to porn, but if you pay off a porn star, that's okay. Is that kind of where the evangelical community is right now about that?
Well, you're not looking at porn; you're looking at a porn star.
All right, maybe that's okay. All right,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, Jerry Falwell Jr., who I'm sure he's intelligent about some things, but
If he would have gone into real estate, stayed in real estate development, Trump might be number 2, not number 1.
But if he took anything, he must have got all his theology or church history at Liberty University, because he doesn't know anything in terms of the history of it. And he talked about.
Do you know Liberty University has a ski slope on its campus, like a functional? You can go skiing when it snows there.
It's good to know. How often does it snow in Lynchburg?
I don't
Maybe
know.
they make their own snow there.
I don't know, but I've never been to that campus. I would like to go just to see it. I mean, there was a conference I think that I almost went to just to see it, but I didn't.
Maybe we can put you. Maybe that sounds like new persuasive words on assignment.
My assignment. I'm still waiting for my Ken Ham invitation.
And then also, I guess, James Dobson. And James Dobson, is he senile? I don't know if is he still functioning? Because he came out saying that God.
I don't spend a lot of time with James Dobson.
Well, you listen. You're on the wall. I
just like Fox News and some radio, but like I don't really listen to Christian conservatives.
And then Franklin Graham, who's a living example of why you should not go in the same business your father was in, came out and loudly supported the president as well. So.
I mean, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka.
Yeah,
I mean, there might be some could come up.
There's a lot of data. There's a lot of data in this study. So, I mean, the longer question is that what is just seemingly the blind support of these leaders? I mean, the fact is these were people who, I mean, you may have not liked his policies, but Barack Obama was a model husband and father, human being. But these people were all very anti him, and one would never accuse Donald Trump of being a model father or a husband. But what is the ongoing need just to continue to aggressively support
Mary's
him?
models?
Mary's
models.
Yeah.
So he's the husband of models, but not a model husband. I mean that's
why boys and girls syntax is everything, right?
Instead of model husband, you can say husband model.
So, I mean, what are some of the obvious and not so obvious reasons why there is this not only, I mean, it's loud vocal support for a man who consistently brings about policies that are antichrist. I mean, it's hard to find anything at all, even in remotely a semblance of any kind of Christian principle about anything he does. So why do they, is it just because they're right-wing conservatives? And I'm not even sure Donald Trump's a right-wing conservative. So what is the ongoing support? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it's pragmatic. I mean, right? If you're a culture warrior, right? And the people that tend to voice this are culture warriors, right? Like people that are not culture warriors, they're still conservative evangelicals. You don't hear saying this. It's a certain kind of culture warrior, and they said they like that he bloodies noses on the schoolyard. I think that we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about the guy from the New Republic, Jewish liberal thinker, was talking about like how liberals use cultural power to marginalize conservatives, call you a racist or a bigot. Right. So I think that happens enough. And if you're in the culture war business, the fact that you've got to kind of deal with that you've got a kind of rabid dog that you think you can kind of keep on leash and attack the vandals in the neighborhood. I mean, I think it's something like that on one level, right? Just hey, we want to win the culture war. We've had some significant losses. I mean,
Right. Yes.
just Doug Paget, we was in Give and Take, was talking about this dialogue he did with this guy who is still a Trump supporter,
Right.
Adam Levine, I think it's his last name. And for him, what Doug came away with is that Barack Obama was so traumatizing for a certain kind of cultural and generally religious conservative that the prospect of Hillary Clinton would be like, 8 years of Trump followed by,
Or 8 years.
Bannon, Obama. That would be what Hillary Clinton would be like,
Right.
so.
And there have been 20 years of anti-Clinton stuff going on, and
But so I think that on some level, the fact that they feel like here's a reality, here's a star, we have a star that's defending us in the culture war. I think, and they got Gorsuch, which I mean, a lot of the stuff Trump could take credit for, and there are things certainly. I think Gorsuch, you nominated a young Supreme Court justice who's not a dumb guy, but any conservative would have done that. The deregulation stuff that's gone on, anybody would have done that.
Right.
The tax cut stuff.
Anybody
would have done that.
You could argue that an effective conservative president with Congress could have gotten a lot more done.
Oh, a lot more done. And what's funny is he campaigned on a very kind of left wing, or at least traditionally left wing, for workers, against globalist trade, all these things. Like the campaign was against Wall Street. Again, Hillary's the Wall Street, but now everything's about the stock market and Davos, and it's just a fascinating contradiction in terms. But I digress. But the thing is, I think that primarily for people like Gary Bauer or Tony Perkins, who had the Mulligan comment, and Franklin Graham. I mean, like the fact that Franklin Graham said, we're not saying he's the nation's pastor or anything, but he is defending Christian values, and there's a kind of bellicose sort of Christianity that Trump's sort of just antagonistic, combative nature almost counterbalances or overshadows. I mean, it's like aggression covers a multitude of sins.
Right.
I mean, I think that on one level, it's some of it's that, right? Like we're winning. Like
they felt. Yeah, I mean, again, the fact that, and there's and I think you and I both have said that some of the feeling of disdain that comes from the left establishment is, there's a legitimate complaint that often there has been some cultural elitism that has tended to forget about large segments of this country. But, there's a lot of disturbing things. I have a friend of mine who is on a board in West Texas, and he's part of his board that they give money. The foundation gives money to rural health initiatives, and the map of underserved communities in this country that have borderline third world kind of health issues totally correlates with religious conservatism as well. Now, he asked me about that, and I haven't had time to look through all the studies. So now, again, what's true often is poor people tend to be more religious, and so that could be just the fact that could be that demographic. But one of the things that he's particularly concerned about, the fact is, access for women's health issues and children, the kind of anti-vaccine phenomena that often is fed among certain conservative Christian groups. It's not just them; it's other people as well.
Yeah, because there's a kind of lefty and libertarian.
There's a libertarian. Yeah, that's not one group alone. But then also the refusal of some conservative pockets governmentally of certain kinds of government aids that would help poor people in medical situations. And so for him, one of the things he equates this with the whole anti-science reaction among certain circles as well. So the fact is that we are not thriving as a country. I mean, the rich are getting richer. The tax cuts are not going to help middle class or poor people. and our infrastructure has not been addressed, and we continue to have extreme, dramatic social issues that are only going to get worse in this country. So I think for me, as it's just the evangelicalism that I was nurtured in was less ideological. It was much more compassion, and it talked a lot more about Jesus than these folks seem to do. And it puzzles me a bit. Is there a theological reason for this as well? Is this part, or do you think it's just a logical conclusion of 30 years of culture war?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that there's a big chunk of the evangelical community that has forsaken the culture war.
Yes.
And who was that? Cal Thomas? Was it Cal Thomas? We see the conservative Cal.
Yeah, he was one of the original.
And he was one of the ones that forsook it early and said that
he was the original moral majority guy.
Yeah, and then he kind of said that we shouldn't be all about this. And so you have a group of conservative evangelicals that are not culture warriors, but then you do have people there, and I also think the whole forgotten man syndrome that Trump talks about. Like, I do think that something about Trump. There are a lot of people I think that are conservative and would check Christian almost as an ethnicity. This is the hillbilly elegy kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
And so around issues of sexuality where there's so much change, and what's more primal than like gender and sexuality, and there's all this change. Then there's kind of a global economy that's leaving a big segment of the country that a lot of those people find themselves in behind.
Right.
Then you have like just the cultural traditionalism, that kind of thing. And so I think that Trump's willingness to sort of give voice to it. The other thing, you think about how many Republicans basically courted the base and then ignored them, right? Like, I mean, largely ignored them. Trump only cares about the base almost. It's all
his base. Yeah.
There's something about that I think emboldens he doesn't. Part of this sort of increasing enthusiasm might be that, well, geez, this is about the time when we can't. Of course, we said we didn't think we were going to do it. No, he really sticks with us against his own political. The sort of savvy commentators that would say, well, this is what most presidents do: try to broaden out their support. Not only court the base, but that's consistently kind of what he does. And I think that, there's something probably that the leaders of the base like about that.
Yeah, well, I think it also, part of it is, the white man's last stand. There's a little bit of that, I think, into it as well, yeah. And, I mean, the fact he gets away with consistently racial politics and,
it's not dog whistle stuff. It's bullhorns.
It's bullhorns.
Yeah. I mean, it's not subtle.
No, and then he just because it's like in Talladega Nights. I say I'm not a racist, so I'm not a racist. I can say racist things, but I'm not. I'm the least racist person I know. So.
If you have to say, I'm the least racist person,
yeah,
you probably, a lot of people think you're racist. Like you don't really. I never heard Gandhi say. I'm the least racist. Yeah, I mean, you don't hear Pope Francis say, I'm the least racist Pope you ever see. I mean, like, if you have to say that you're the least racist person, you're probably a racist. They were saying, like,
that's probably, that's a good.
Yeah, I mean, just as a rule of thumb.
So, people say demographically, one of the costs of this among evangelicals is, younger adults voting with their feet. They've now again that's there are 20-somethings who support Donald Trump, but by and large that age group is left behind in this kind of blanket support for Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think evangelicalism and the Republican Party face major demographic challenges, like in the future, in that, and because the two have become linked, I just think it's never good for a culture when there's a religious party and a non-religious. When there's like,
Yeah.
if you're religiously observant, you tend to go to and so the kind of conservative causes, culture works are causes that the Republican Party and evangelicals are kind of jumping into bed with each other consistently on. I mean, it's gonna the hold on the millennials. There's going to be no hold. I mean, that's the interesting thing.
But I don't think the Democratic Party is an automatic winner from this, because I think, as we've seen, I mean,
you're not inspired by Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, I'm not inspired by any of those folks right now. And I think, I think there needs to be significant change. I mean, I think there's an acute lack of statesmen and stateswomen. Now, I think there's some rising stars that could be helpful, and I think unfortunately the Republicans of conscience, who I think are people that I maybe didn't agree with, but on everything, but I admired. A lot of those people have been disenfranchised. I mean, they're not the party has left them behind, and so they've left the party behind. I don't know. So I think it is a. We've talked about this, before we did an episode last year about how late democracies look, and we continue to check the boxes of how democracies and their demises look, and I'm not optimistic about a long-term democratic solution for the current lack of morality among the Republican Party, and that the fact is people who should be a little more biblically prudent, people who are followers of Christ, have willing to be sacrificed so much for feeling like they have a champion. That just boggles my mind. That's so contrary to so much of the faith that I was nurtured in, and as a historian, the better angels of the evangelical movement. This is a dark day for us.
To quote our friend David Fitch, it's a Christendom problem. But there is something about that, though, right? Whenever you get too close to power, and whereas the gospel seems to have at the heart of it strength through weakness, and winning through losing. Losing is so there's this kind of.
Well, I would say it's actually the fruit of non-Christendom in this country, the anarchy of Protestantism in this country, and the fact that there is no accountability.
Was the guy that shot Garfield, was he Protestant and an anarchist? Because then he'd be a case study.
Or I can't remember. Was it maybe an anarchist shot McKinley? Garfield, I think, was a guy who wanted a job. It was an unemployed guy. Yeah, I think I got
probably also a Protestant.
Probably also a Protestant.
Who knows?
But yeah, so
it's interesting when we talk about like the late democracies. Like, there's this guy who's going to actually come on Give and Take, Chris Katarna, who wrote a co-authored a book called The Age of Discovery, and I heard an interview with him recently. He was saying that basically democracy was kind of the conservative solution. Like, if you look at Plato and the Republic, we get the philosopher king. We get Bill Bohr, and he'll sit and make rational decisions for everybody.
Right, I like that.
But then the problem is it's a high risk, high reward, because what if we pick the wrong philosopher king, and they're so you have more of an Aristotelian, broader base.
So instead of picking me, you pick Fitch.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. So but you look at somebody like Aristotle, who thinks you broaden out the power base a little bit and something more democratic, and that will act as a check against this. Now it's sort of like, it almost seems like democracy is the high risk, high reward, because of people that get voted in. I mean, you look at what happened in Egypt, and you have Spring, right, and the Muslim Brotherhood, or you look at the Brexit thing, and China. I mean, Fukuyama, right? Fukuyama's book, The End of History, right, was in the early 90s, right? The Iron Curtain has fallen. Basically, it's this totally Hegelian book. In The End of History, liberal democracies are are the wave of the future. China, they're totalitarian, and to really play on the global stage, they're going to have more advanced capitalistic economic growth, and that's going to lead to a flourishing of democratic values, and we don't have to worry about China, right? Well, now China's like, well, look, no, you can do a better job as a statist. Like you can, or even with social media, right? Like you look at how China was talking about how we thought social media would, and he's pro social media and very much like let it go run wild and sort of, but saying, like China figures out, other people think, well, this is the democratic voice sort of flourishing, getting important. Well, China's like, no, this is great because now it makes private speech public speech, and we can know exactly where people are speaking out and with dissenting ideas, and we can crack down on that, and we can sort of, like Russia's doing, we can have aggressive social media strategies to influence behavior in other countries. It's funny too, in this interview, he said that Americans should thank the Russian taxpayers because of what we were learning. Like they weren't littering social media here during the election with hyper ideological stuff. It was homophobic. It was racist. It was it's he was saying that this campaign that Russia did showed the underbelly and how different our private discourse is from our public political discourse. And so there you go. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff. It just makes me think about the democratic project and where we're at.
Yeah, no, and the fact is that, again, the assault on media, for instance, and the fact that Trump gets applauded for saying things that Stalin said, and
enemy of the field, which Khrushchev came after, or
Khrushchev came after
Stalin.
Yeah, well, he's the one that did the anti-Stalin stuff, Khrushchev.
Yeah, he banned the enemy of the state media, which is Donald Trump has picked up.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is
Khrushchev weak in the knees.
Well,
he's a chicken liver sissy. That Khrushchev.
I put a poster from Dr. Seuss in 1941. Who Dr. Seuss was one of the cartoonists that the military hired, and it has a woman, a grandmother, wearing a America First T-shirt, and she's talking about how it's good that Uncle Adolf is taking care of all these people, and it just reminds that the immigration policies, there have been multiple waves of anti-immigration feeling, and one of the laws that was passed, I think, in the 1920s, was the law that kept thousands of Jews from being able to come here. And we actually sent a bunch of people back to Germany, and they died in the concentration camp. So on this day where we do Holocaust remembrance, that was a American first policy that helped thousands of people die. And I think those things are important to remember. And there were Christians who were speaking out against that, as well as there were Christians who back then even were supporting a kind of xenophobic identity that has nothing to do with the gospel.
By the way, if Donald Trump came into the bunker, I'm sure he'd say shithole. That's dusty at times, and its lighting is not perfect. So with some justification, maybe shithouse.
Right. Well,
I like on CNN that they just said we're saying shithole.
Yeah,
I just say shithole.
It's funny, and to me, what is a curse and what's not? I mean, that shit is not a curse word. It's slang. It may be improper.
But it's funny is that the sentiment is the problem. It's not the language. It's the sentiment. The
total disdain.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too that I never get is, people from places like Nigeria come over here and thrive. I mean, you look at the average higher incomes; they're higher average income than native-born Americans.
The Nigerians who come here, on an average, over 50% of them have advanced degrees.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I thought that for conservatives, we're pretty sympathetic to Trump's comments, and who always say that Scandinavia is the worst because it's all government, lazy people. They're getting everything in. So we want the people with the socialist government over here. But the people that don't have a lot of government, how come to work their ass off? They're from shitholes and they're bad.
Yeah, and
the whole logic of the thing is so stupid.
And I'm thinking of all the evangelicals.
Why would anyone from Norway want to come here? We're getting taken care of pretty well.
I saw on social media there was a list of everything Norway has that we don't, and no one from Norway would want to come. I also think of all the Christian missions and all the relationships we have, the amazing relationships we have with our brothers and sisters from Haiti, and from Kenya, from Africa, from South America, Central America, and how those kind of comments. He was talking about your brothers and sisters in Christ. Many of you who know them by face and name, and that bond is more important than any kind of narrow kind agenda. So try to remember that we're Christians. That would be a good thing to remember in 2018.
Who was the commentator that said, "I'm a proud shitholer"? Like my parents, right? Like when people like,
oh, it's what's his name? The guy from New York Times, the conservative guy that's a non-Trump.
I love what Bernie Sanders like. My father immigrated from a country, I guess the president would say, is a shithole, Hungary.
Yeah. All right. Well,
we've come a long way. Now, so in closing, I think that it is interesting. Bill Kristol's become a fascinating culture figure right now. Has this kind of the quintessential sort of anti-Trumpers. But I remember a couple weeks ago he was saying,
"You need to start getting neoconservative bobbleheads."
I love that. I love it. Today I was listening to his conversation podcast. He had a guy on who's something the fourth, who has written a few books on Shakespeare and Rome, and Shakespeare's use of Rome. It was fantastic. But Kristol was saying nothing is worth this. Mm-hmm. Not a justice, not a tax cut, not like it's just the long term cost
damage
to civil society and just to our mutual social bonds are not worth the short-term gain. And I think that everyone's pragmatic around political things, and you kind of have to be a certain time. But there are times where you have to. It's where when we defend the republic via torture, right? Is it worth losing our humanity to defend our security? Like, at what point do we lose? At what point does life become less worth living because we're less human? And I think that's where all of us would do well to ask those questions.
And I think we have to stop attacking the people who risk their lives to prevent the next 9/11.
Yeah.
Those of you Christians who are supporting that, you're pagans. So stop being that way.
Yeah, and I was thinking about J. Edgar Hoover, and
we've come.
It's interesting. So I wonder what evangelical polling is on J. Edgar Hoover.
With
the women's drag clothing.
Before we knew he was there was actually some of those fundamentalist tracts. There was a J. Edgar Hoover tract that they used to send out, his words. So they probably don't send that out.
I would think.
All right, guys. God bless.
Well,
Have
thank
a good
you.
one.
Have a great weekend, and bye. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Here we are still. We're live.
Hi, Reynolds. Thank you for your
comments.
comments.
Thanks. Cruz, everybody. Glenn.
All right.
Thanks, friends.
All right. Be well, everybody.
Bye now.